How many machines are in your kitchen? I can think of the refrigerator, stove, oven, the toaster, coffee maker, mixer, and the can opener. Some of these machines can do more than one job. For instance, I can make toast in the oven and I can make coffee on the stove, but the toaster and the coffee maker also serve specific purposes. Sewing machines are the same way. In the world of sewing, there are general machines, sergers, embroidery machines, semi-professional embroidery machines, and a host of others that do a specific but remarkable task. We're going to have fun today. Welcome to my sewing room. I'm so pleased to have as my guest today, Evy Hawkins. Evy is the owner and designer for A Bit of Stitch. Evy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Martha.
Evy, this is absolutely gorgeous. Oh, tell us about this beautiful dress.
I made that for my daughter, who really looked good in it.
She modeled it at Arlington, and she looked like a movie star in it.
She has fun with it. It's needle felted silk chiffon, silk dupioni, silk taffeta, silk organza, and silk velvets on the top. And it's decorated a little bit there with some antique jet glass beads. And then the skirt, all of those ruffles were actually embellished on to a piece of silk taffeta. And
using the embellisher.
Using the embellisher.
Oh my goodness. Oh, Evy, show us everything.
I love this machine. This machine and I are best friends. We have so much fun together. This is actually the techniques that we did. All of these techniques on this little piece of sample of fabric are also on that outfit right there. You can see some cut silk velvet here that has been embellished into place. You'll notice that I don't embellish it completely flat, but I'm leaving those ruches and ripples, a little bit rumpled look. There's a piece of silk velvet that has been needle felted in place. Here's a little ruffle. You notice that little ruffle of silk organza, how prettily that the embellisher ruffles it up. Here's a little rosette, which we've actually used as a ribbon, and I'm going to show you how to do that on this machine.
Okay.
I have started, normally I would start on a piece of wash away fabric type stabilizer, but for the purpose of this show, so that we don't lose it in case I sneeze or you sneeze, we're going to start directly on a piece of cutaway mesh type stabilizer. And one of the things that you need to know about in the embellishing machine is that you are driving the fabric. It does not have feed dogs. So when we lower our presser foot...
Now tell me, is there a thread in this machine?
No, there's no thread, just needles.
Just needles, okay.
Just needles. And so what we're doing literally is we are pushing the fabric underneath the machine, encouraging it to ruche and ripple up. Isn't that pretty?
Absolutely beautiful. Oh, do it again.
Texture that we have created. Well, I want to show you another thing that I like to do with this.
I just love to watch this.
I like to take a little
just
piece
needles.
Just needles.
Okay. Punches.
That's all it is. Punches it into place. Now it's not secure and permanent until I make it permanent, but I'm going to tell you about that in just a second. As you notice, we can also add trims. See how I'm just needle felting those right into place. Now I've covered that little connection there between those two pieces with a piece of trim. And this is what a ruffle looks like going on. I love to add ruffles. They're perhaps the funnest thing to do. See how the needles just eat the fabric and they encourage it to make this beautiful little ruffle?
That is so pretty.
And then there's one more little technique that's really fun, making a simple and a sweet little rosette, where basically what you're doing is you're winding the ribbon around and around between your thumb and forefinger, and we're pressing it carefully underneath of our needles. We lower our needles into it once, twice, just to get it into place, and then we needle felt it in place. And what we have made is a ribbon rosette. Isn't that sweet?
Oh, Evy, it is truly beautiful.
What
just
you would do
beautiful.
is you would come to your sewing machine and you would do some free motion stipple stitching just like that. I've done it in black. Normally I use a clear thread, but I've done it in black so that you can see it for the purpose of this show. But you just zip it into place and then it's permanent. You wash your wash away stabilizer away and you have a very soft, free hanging, just like my little jacket is, piece of fabric that you can make many beautiful projects with. There's also a few other things that you can do with needle felting. This is something that I absolutely love to do. This is a little baby vest, and what I call it is embroidery to embellisher. So you don't have to be an artist to actually do a beautiful little needle felted design. And so what we're starting with here is we are actually starting with an applique, a very simple shape, just a sweet, simple shape. Applique it down. There's the second step of the applique. Then I'm going directly to my needle felting machine, and I am embellishing, roving over my fabric. Now I would use a piece of wool felt and wool fabric to do this so that the needle felting is actually permanent. Then I'm going to come back, I'm adding some detailing, use a little printed template of my embroidery design, and I will put it back in the hoop and stitch my little kitten face on there, and then I'm finished. And I have a perfect little design, and I didn't have to be an artist to do it. Everybody's got lots and lots of embroidery designs in their stash. You can be a designer too.
Oh, Evy, I just think this is so much fun. To me, this is fascinating and something totally new and creative. And your jacket is beautiful, and this beautiful, beautiful black dress you shared with us. Thank you so much for sharing. And there, by the way, there is a needle guard around there, I might add.
Yes, there is.
For your fingers, which is a good thing if somebody got overly anxious to get their fingers up close. Evy, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And now Evy has some beautiful sewing inspirations to share with you. Evy, this is just pure art. Oh my goodness, how beautiful. Tell us about this beautiful vest.
That's needle felted silk chiffon, silk velvet, and silk taffeta.
Oh, let me turn it around so our viewers can see the back.
It's actually got a little bit of sashiko stitching on it too. I have to make my machines play together.
A little bit of everything. Oh, is this beautiful?
And some machine embroidery.
Well, just a little bit of everything. And I love these flowers. Now, these are the wool.
They are. They're actually made using it on a wash-away piece of stabilizer, needle felting, roving, and wool felt directly to wash-away stabilizer, and that creates 3D flowers.
You say needle felting, the embellisher. Everyone, oh, absolutely beautiful. And I see we have another beautiful piece of wool here.
And that is the same thing. It's beginning at the embroidery machine, moving directly to the embellisher, where you're using a simple applique shape and you're adding your wool roving on top of wool fabric.
Wow. And this beautiful little box.
Needle felted silk chiffon. That's a current project that I'm teaching.
On the top and then on the side.
Sashiko stitching on the side.
Oh, Evy, what a beautiful, beautiful box. And an evening bag.
Both of these evening bags are needle felted silk chiffon, silk taffeta, and silk organza onto a base of cutaway stabilizer that a little bit of batting has been added to. That gives it more dimension and a little bit more character, I think.
Oh, I don't know which I love the most, the red or the black. And then, of course, the beads for the handle.
Hand-beaded handle.
What an exquisite evening bag, Evy. And then a little precious little pillow. You know how I love the pinks.
I call that my princess pillow because it looks like a princess needs it.
Pillow.
I think so.
Oh, and the little
embroidery.
Okay, the embroidery. And, of course, the embellishing.
Yes, indeed. The embellisher is what created the fabric from which I made the purse.
And then question, how are the little pearls attached?
By hand.
By hand, no glue here.
I knew
that that is just beautiful. Oh, Evy, thank you so much for bringing these beautiful things.
You're welcome.
And now Evy has another surprise for you, and it's so quick and so easy. Evy, this is one of the most adorable quilts. Tell me about it.
This is quilting in the hoop.
Quilting in the embroidery hoop.
In the embroidery hoop.
I think you said you're going to talk about the triangles today.
Yes,
I cannot
am.
wait.
I call it lazy girl quilting.
Lazy girl quilting.
So what we're doing is we're actually hooping a piece of wash-away stabilizer. You would stitch that first outline, which shows where the block goes, the center block. Lay a piece of fabric over it. You repeat that same stitch again, and it sews it into place. And then the next stitch sequence will show you where that little corner goes. And it shows you exactly where it goes, so you know that you are laying a piece of fabric down on that outline right on the edge, and we're getting ready to flip this piece of fabric over, and once it's flipped over and in its place, then the machine stitches it down. So you have actually finished that corner of the quilt block, and you will repeat that until all of your quilt corners are in place. 1, 2, 3, 4. It works around clockwise. And then if there's anything pretty in the center of it, most of my quilts have applique designs in it. So we would do a little applique, This is the first step of an applique, which is the material outline stitching. Lay your applique material over it, and then we would trim it. We'd cut it out very closely to that outline stitching. You see how close you can get using little tiny trimming scissors like this. And then you would finish stitching your applique until your quilt block is completely done. And then there we have a finished quilt block in the hoop. Now to add the batting and the backing to it, what we would do, we turn the hoop over and you will notice that there is a square all the way around that showing you where you place your batting and a little layer of backing. Now this backing just keeps the batting from sinking down into the bobbin case of your machine. It's not necessary anything that's lightweight, like a lightweight cotton. I like to use the sheer mesh stabilizer. We're going to turn it over and very carefully place it into the machine and let the machine stitch the stippling. And after the stippling is done, you take it out, you trim it to 1/4 inch seam allowance, and your quilt block is finished, completely finished. And after that, we strip them together with straight strips of sashing fabric cut on a straight grain, and we're just piecing all of our quilt blocks that we've made in the hoop together. This is a very fast and fun way to do quilting in the hoop.
Oh, Evy, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I've just had such a good time with your being here today.
Thank you, Martha.
And now I have some heirloom quilting for you. I'm so pleased to have as my guest today Nina McVeigh. Nina is an educator trainer for Bernina of America. Nina, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Martha.
And this beautiful quilt. I think we're going to talk today about the square, which has the more traditional beginning sewing techniques on it. Lace to lace, entredeux to lace, and then lots of other techniques too.
You're right. This is our traditional block. The type of heirloom techniques that if you are an heirloom sewer, you would be very familiar with. We've just created a block out of those traditional techniques. So I, again, as Martha said, am doing lace to lace and then entredeux to fabric. And of course, that's going to lead to lace to entredeux. So let's just go to the machine and review some of those very basic techniques. At the machine, I have my lace to lace, so I have one lace on each side of my edge stitching foot, so my guide is separating those, and I've selected a zigzag stitch. And again, depending on your lace, depending on the size of the heading in your lace, you may have to play around with those settings and see whatever works best. You just want to make sure that you're catching the heading on both swings of the needle. And while this has always been one of my favorite techniques, it just comes out looking so good and it makes you feel like you're really doing a good job. I really love the addition of the dual feed to that because it really makes everything smooth. You hardly have to touch your laces, and then they're not going to be stretched as they come out the back. They just lay nice and flat. So that's our lace to lace, and you are going to build a band of lace, a fancy band as it were, so that you've got that when you go to put the entire block together. And then the other technique we're going to simply or quickly review is the entredeux to fabric. So I have my entredeux to the edge of my fabric, and I'm going back to my straight stitch, and I'm just going to, and I'm going to keep the same foot on, my edge stitching foot, and stitch in the ditch of the entredeux, right next to that entredeux, and then I'm going to trim that excess seam allowance to about 1/8 of an inch. I like to use my rotary cutter to do that. Be careful when you use your rotary cutter, of course, that you don't accidentally slip and cut into the fabric. And then I'm going to go to another foot. I need a foot that has a groove on the bottom that's going to roll that edge. I like to use my 3-groove pin tucking foot. So that fabric or that entredeux is going to ride right in the groove of my foot. And I'm doing an off the edge zigzag, which is going to roll or clean finish that edge. I'm working with linen, and linen doesn't always, it's a heavier linen and it doesn't always like to roll. I would say don't worry about it if it doesn't roll. It's still a clean finish on that edge. So lace to lace, entredeux to fabric, and then of course, as we put these together, we're going to have to do lace to entredeux. But as we look at these different bands that we've created, you'll notice that I have just plain fabric on the end. So as I join these together, I want to make a certain size block, a 12-inch block, and this is kind of my fudge fabric and my fudge factor in the end, so that I don't have to keep adding, that I can just trim off excess fabric. It's a great place to use your scrap laces. You'll notice I have different widths of laces, different colors of laces. So I've got my fabric to entredeux here in this band, my lace to lace technique here. I've created my ribbon band and another lace to lace fancy band, and then again my fabric band. This last fabric band, I have done some pin tucking just to add interest to that. But now my job is to sew all of these together to create that block for my quilt.
And then after you sew them together, cut whatever size you want, and it looks as if you've been working with those exact size pieces the whole time.
That's
Nina,
right.
thank you so much for this beautiful, beautiful lesson and for this beautiful quilt block. And now I have a fun segment for you called I Love My Serger. So pleased to have as my guest today, Alicia Welcher. Alicia is a Martha Pullen educator, and she teaches at the School of Art Fashion in Huntsville. Alicia, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Martha. Today we have a really quick, again, and easy project. I don't think we know how to do anything else on our serger. Today we're going to do gathered skirts. And so we have this cute little gathered skirt here that's got all kinds of different fabrics in it. When you're determining when you want to do a gathered skirt, all you're going to do is to determine how many layers you want to your skirt and how long you want it to be. And then you cut your pieces out and put them together. Now, the construction of a gathered skirt is simply one piece here that is not gathered to a piece that is gathered, and that same thing continues on throughout the entire skirt. When you first start, you're going to determine again how many layers you want, how long you want those layers to be. To the center layers, you're going to simply add a seam allowance to both sides. To the top layer, you need to add enough for your casing, and to your bottom layer, you need to add enough for your hem. Then we're going to do this using a gathering foot, because that's what makes it easy for our serger. Now, a gathering foot is what I have in my hand right here. This has a little flange on the bottom of the foot, and that flange works with the feed dogs to kind of squish your fabric up together. So I'm going to put this on the serger, and then I'm going to show you how it works. Okay. What we're going to do, I'm just going to gather one single piece of fabric first. Now the piece will go underneath the foot. If you look at the foot, there is a little groove right through here. We are not putting our fabric in that groove. We're putting it underneath the entire foot. And we're going to, the other things that we have done, before I forget, we have set our stitch length to its highest number, and we have set our differential also to its highest number, which is going to help to squish the fabric together as we go. So as we serge this, when you see it coming out the back of the foot, the serger is doing all of this for me. I don't have to run 2 gathering rows. I don't have to squish it up all by myself and pull it up, and we get this beautiful gathering. Now, when we're doing our skirt, we would take this piece of gathering and attach it to another piece on top of that, which is flat. That's 2 steps. Now, we don't want to do 2 steps because we don't have to do 2 steps. We're going to do this in 1 step. So what we're going to do is we are going to take, again, our piece that needs to be gathered is going to go underneath the entire foot. We're going to get that started a little bit. And then we are going to take the piece that is not going to be gathered, and we are going to put that piece into that little groove. What that does is it puts it on top of the flange that I told you earlier works with the feed dogs to squish the fabric. So this one is on top of that flange. It's not going to have any of those effects done to it. It's just going to remain flat. Take a couple of stitches for my needles to get in. Now, the important part is the bottom fabric that is here has to feed much faster than the top fabric. So I cannot hold both of those pieces of fabric in the same hand. So I have one hand down here that is guiding the bottom fabric and another hand on top of that that is guiding the top fabric. And we just guide both of those. I'm not putting any pressure on any of the fabrics. All we're doing is guiding them through. And once you're finished, you'll have one piece. Now your hopes are to have your gathered piece be slightly longer than the piece that you put it to, that is your flat piece on the top. In order to achieve that, you are going to go through and test the amount of gathers. You can change your differential feed and your stitch length to regulate the amount of gathers that go into your stitch. Now I had tested this for my skirt so that those two pieces would come out with the flat piece longer than the gathered piece. However, I forgot to change them before I stuck these two pieces in. So that shows the importance of actually testing your stitches and making sure that you change to the proper settings before you start. Now, what we're going to do here to create the rest of the piece is you would gather each piece to the piece above it, and you're going to wind up with these pieces that are out at the edges here, the extras. You are going to simply cut those off even all the way up to the top, and you're going to serge that side, and you can simply allow your serger to cut them off if you would like to. But we're going to serge that side there, the side seam. This one shows the side seam is serged through here. And then you're going to add a hem at the bottom. In this case, we just added a simple rolled hem to the bottom of this garment. And then at the top, you're going to clean finish it first. Sorry, you're going to clean finish your edge first, fold the top edge under, and then you can create a casing with your sewing machine. The other option for your hem is shown on this piece that I have at the bottom, where we have just taken this beautiful piece of eyelet and made that into our hem. And that way you don't need to finish the lower edge at all. And you wind up with these beautiful skirts in no time at all.
Oh, Alicia, that's absolutely magic, isn't it?
It is, absolutely.
Thank you so very much, Alicia.
You're welcome.
And now I have a piece of my vintage collection to share with you. I'm going to take you on a little journey with me. Pretend we are in London and Joe and I have hailed a black cab about 4 a.m. and we're on our way to a flea market on the other side of London long before daylight. We take the black cab across London, we get out and we start looking in the stores and we look and we look and we uncover this beautiful little dress. Now the detail, remember it isn't even daylight yet. This beautiful little dress has some very interesting details. Actually, do you see the yoke, this half of the yoke and this half of the yoke? That was really a piece that was meant to go on the bottom of a skirt, and they just simply used it for the yoke. Now, I don't know if it were not wide enough or if she just liked these details, but this mother inserted a piece of double needle, not double needle, you could do double needle, of pin tucks in here. They were tiny little folded tucks. A beautiful piece of double entredeux is here, and she did not let any detail go unnoticed. The sweet little cuffs have two more very tiny tucks with a lace. And you know, when I buy these pieces, remember we're in London now, when I buy these pieces, I always look for details that we can reproduce today and to bring to share with you on Martha's Sewing Room. But when I saw this particular skirt, I was thinking, oh, wouldn't this be beautiful reproduced in machine embroidery? Because with today's wonderful machine embroidery, machines that embroider, we can indeed recreate these magnificent antique patterns, such as this beautiful rose, and then the pretty scallop on the bottom and the little eyelets. Let me turn it around and let's just see the details on the back. Again, tiny little tucks, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And the little hidden snaps, actually. Sometimes they're buttons and buttonholes, but then this mother used snaps to close her baby's dress. Thank you so much for joining me today. Won't you come back next time?